Hi everyone, in today's video what we're going to do is have a go at comparing a couple of different softwares for texturing. So what I've done is in Fusion I've created headphones. I've also done the same in Maya, and what we're going to do is over across a couple of different bits of software just texture and render them and see, like, compare and contrast the differences. Now what I've tried to do is keep them the ones that are either very cheap or offer educational licenses. But then I have bought another one which is a little bit more expensive. More because what I like to do a little bit of trial and error, just seeing which ones work best, which ones don't, that sort of thing. Now, obviously, my how I started with 3D stuff was with the CAD, like SolidWorks, Fusion 360. And once I got good at that, I then started getting into 3D with Maya, and then after that, I started looking at texturing specific software. So my background isn't specifically in texturing and rendering, so a lot of what I've done is sort of self-taught YouTube videos, that sort of thing. But it's been quite good doing a bit of trial and error, seeing what works. So first part, what we'll do, we'll have a look at the model in Fusion, texture it, render it, see how it looks, and then in the other ones we'll try Substance Painter, we will try Armor Paint, and we will try Marmoset Toolbag. So with Fusion, obviously they offer educational license, so do Substance Painter, so they should be free if you're in full-time education. Armor Paint I bought off Gumroad, which was actually only £13. I think it was like $20. I'll post a link in the chat to the Gumroad thing as well. I've played around with it a little bit. I'm not by no means like fully familiar with everything in it, but I've had a bit of a play around with it. And then the other one is Marmoset Toolbag, which I have bought, which was a bit more expensive. Again, they offer an educational license, but it's not free. I think it was £100. Um, but I haven't played around with that at all yet, so I'm going to like sort of trial and error as we're doing it, and we'll sort of compare the standard of rendering as we're doing it. Okay, so we'll start with the Fusion one. So we won't do any modelling, it's literally all just texturing, playing around with material. So if you've not done Fusion texturing before, just hit A for appearances, or it's under modify, and appearances there, and drop down menu, and you can start playing around with materials. And it's quite easy, it's just drag and drop and see what they look like. So on these, if you see like these little arrows, that means they're there, they're just not downloaded, so you can just click on it and it will download for you. What I found with a lot of the Fusion ones, it is very much just sort of trial and error, see how it looks. So I think perfect looks a bit better. So you see we've got a bit of like distortion going on there, it's a bit hard to see. If you look at that sort of angle, so you can, there isn't a lot of like UV sort of messing around you can do, but you can texture map control, so we can grab that and try maybe like spherical. There you go, that looks better. Because what you want to try and avoid is having like all the stretching sort of thing. Yeah, so you see there, it's like, looks like it's been stretched and pulled, which is not what we want. So texture map control up here. Obviously spherical. Again, bit of trial and error of having a look at this, how they look. Okay, I just messed that one up. Let's do that one. Okay. So you can also mess around with the settings of it a little bit. So if you double click on here, you can mess around with like the scaling and that sort of thing. Rotation. Just curious to see if I can change the colour of that. How does that look? Okay. try that and see how it looks first render. There's a few other things we could try. Let's give that a bit of a go. Let's give that a save first of all. And rather than waiting for like render now, we can do in-canvas render, see how it starts to look. So you can see there what's quite nice is those perforated, we've managed to get rid of that distortion, which is quite good. Scale wise, maybe a little bit smaller. Let's zoom in a bit. Where's that perforated? Let's try like that. Let's give that a go. Let me zoom out. Okay, I'm kind of stuck between deciding whether I want to have that metallic flake there, or if we go like there's the one that I picked. So we try that one. Let's give this one a go and see what we think. Okay, yeah, I think I prefer silver, so let's drag that on them. Okay, let's give that a go. Okay, and the only other thing potentially was let's try a leather matte. See how that looks. Maybe we want to mess with that scale a bit. Okay, let's give that a little save and let's play around with some lighting. So we've got sharp, let's try. Okay, that's not bad. Rim highlights is certainly my favourite so far. Let's try. No, it washes it out a bit too much. Soft light works quite well. Okay, so it's either just looking for a colour that'll sort of like make it stand out rather than the grey sort of. It's not bad. You don't really want anything really in your face and like offensive, just a nice neutral sort of colour. Okay. Right, let's give that a save, and then let's try and do a proper render rather than in-canvas render and see what we end up with. So, do local render, let's do like a standard for now, we'll do a final when we're happy with it. Okay, that's not looking bad. In fact, I'm quite pleased with that. Maybe we bring that white down a little bit, that gloss, where is it? Make it a bit darker maybe. Let's crank it up and see what happens. Annoyingly, I think I preferred it before. Let's turn that off. No, let's leave that on. I think I preferred that a bit more white. got that rubber there. What if we... No, let's try that. Okay. Let's try that one. Can't really see much of a difference. Okay. Right, let's... Okay, zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, let's set a final render. And we'll call that one done. So that's the end of like doing the fusion. So benefit of fusion texturing is it got a lot of decent-ish materials. It's very easy to drag and drop. You don't have to mess around with UV unwrapping. You can sort of mess around like we did with the texture map like layout a little bit. Only problem is you can't add things like imperfections. You can't add little like details like that. But for what it is, it's decent. I mean, how long did that take me? So let's save that one. What we'll do is we'll have a go in Substance, Armor Paint and Marmoset, and then we'll sort of compare it at the end. Okay. Yeah, let's stop. We'll start with the Fusion one and we'll jump over to the next one. Okay, so we're now in Substance Painter. So the model is slightly different. So I've modelled all the models that we're doing in this video. So the first one in Fusion, or I modelled specifically in Fusion. But this one I was done in Maya. So this is the model I'm going to use for Substance Painter, Armor Paint and Marmoset. Main reason being is that if I'd modelled it in Fusion and then I'd taken it and unwrapped it, it kind of wouldn't have looked all that nice. So the reason I modelled this in Maya is so that I had more control over the actual UVs. So I brought this in. It has been baked already. You can tell it's been baked because there's like shadows cast on it. So same sort of thing. I'm sort of going to trial and error, add materials to it, and then we'll sort of have a go at trying to compare it as well. So not so much me commentating as I'm doing it, just like me sort of muttering to myself and seeing what I like, what I don't like, and so on. So let's get going. And already you can see, because we've had more control over the unwrapping of it all, we've not got any like distortion or anything like that, which makes a big difference. much like with Fusion, you can mess with the scale of the material, so you can make the grains bigger and smaller and so on. At the minute, Fusion is my sort of favourite go-to texture. It does offer free educational license, much like Fusion or Autodesk products. Whereas Substance Painter is Adobe, and you don't need to have Adobe Suite to have it. They do, as long as you've got an educational email address, so .ac.uk or whatever country you're in, it will let you do it that way. I think that middle bit's more like a hard plastic, really. It's something like that. So we've got like soft padding on the top and bottom, and then like a hard plastic in the middle. And we want like metallic kind of thing. What do we want? Like a steel painted. Not so sure. Let's try like. Okay, and then if I put like paint on top. I may have to leave that as that is, and then maybe if we do that, bring the white up, and then I'll turn the metalness up a bit. Yeah, something. Turn the roughness down a bit. Okay, let's give it a little save. And then let's jump into rendering and see how we're looking. Let's do like a studio lighting. with like the material selection, I feel like do you want to change that scale slightly? Something like that. I feel like I want that. Which one's that? Okay, that I want to change the colour of. To that, so what have I done there? Plastic. Right, let's instantiate. I'll do that too. Back of speakers. Now we go to back of speakers. There we go, now they match. That looks a bit better. And then let's do let's turn that on this off a bit. Oh. That's a bit nicer. Okay. So in this folder, it's supposed to be like stitching. You can paint stitching on there, but don't know if you'd really see it from where we're doing. Let's have a look. What we're doing. Okay, actually, make that a bit lighter. We made like a bluey sort of thing, didn't we, before? Or not like that. Should have taken that hex code. Yeah, something like that. Okay, looks a little bit washed out there. Can we? A little bit darker, maybe. Or do we complete left field and do we go like? No, we don't do that. That's horrible. Okay, so now got materials. Let's start adding a little bit more details in. So if we do like add a mask. So it breaks it up a bit. We don't want that to be quite as in your face. So this is something you can't do in Fusion really. So you can add like decals for like imperfections, but it's okay, but it's nothing compared to like generators and masks that you can do in Fusion and it can do in Substance. I'm quite excited to have a go at using Moaset. I think that's supposed to be like the texturing software. Like that's the one everyone like professionally uses. Okay, quite like that. It's really easy. You just add materials, add black masks, generators, so you can get all these little details really, really easily. I feel like that would have some smudges. So it just automatically generates like smudge. You got like smudges, you got fingerprints, you've got all sorts. It's really, really easy to do. It just breaks up like the shininess of the material. Problem is sometimes it's very easy to get carried away and putting too much, which I'm very guilty of, but it's a lot of fun. Bring that down a bit. Let's do another one. Let's have a look, see how that's looking. Okay, it's a bit funky up here, I don't really like that. Can we sort that out? Okay, let's move that. Let's try something different. There we go. Then what we can do, let's hinges, speaker holders, that's the bit we want, so let's click on that one. If you do like a paint layer, you type in like or not even that. So let's move that a second. Let's do a paint layer. Make that a little bit darker. And then if we had a black mask, fill and search for like fingerprint smears. So that shines through a bit. Did the same on back of speakers as well. So let's do a paint layer. As you can see, it's really easy to sort of just spend ages adding all these little imperfections. Let's give that a little save. Go to render, let's have a look. Okay, and then what we'll do is I'll just sample time to something. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll stop that one there. So that's the Substance Painter part. So we've done Fusion, we've done Substance Painter. Next we'll have a look at Armor Paint and then Marmoset. Have a go. I mean, you can see the quality difference already. Obviously, if you've not got a decent, so you need to have decent amount of RAM and a graphics card for Substance. So I think I've got 16 gig of RAM and a 3050 graphics card, which isn't amazing, but it's okay. Whereas Fusion doesn't run off graphics cards. I mean, if you're doing like in-cloud render, in-campus render, it does, but it's mainly RAM. Again, 16 gig of RAM is fine. But they both offer the free education license, which is excellent, particularly working in education, students, is brilliant. The other ones are not free, so the next one we'll have a look at is Armor Paint, which wasn't free. It's still in beta testing. Like I said, I think I paid 13 quid for it, $20 or whatever the exchange rate was at the time. So it's relatively cheap, and the other one is a little bit more expensive, but it's good. A little bit of trial and error, so let's see. But as I say, at the minute, Substance Painter is my favourite one. I've had a lot of fun playing around with it. There are loads of other good videos on YouTube of people that are excellent at it, and like sort of looking through those as well. So we'll start with Substance one here, and then we'll jump over to Armor Paint. Okay, so now we are in Armor Paint. So this is the one I think I bought for like 13 quid, so like $20 or something like that. I will post a link to the Gumroad thing in the description for you to have a look at as well. I had a bit of a play around. I'm not as experienced in it as I am in like Substance Painter or Fusion, but it's got a bit of trial and error like with everything. So we'll have a go at texturing this one as well and see and compare it to the others. So it is a little bit harder to like the navigation's not quite as like good, I have noticed. Okay, so let's have a look. We're going to go for the same sort of thing. Okay, I don't want that one. Do you want like... The only thing with this one as well is you do need to be connected to the internet to properly access the library for all the materials. Annoying that it doesn't keep your names of your materials, so it's quite hard to identify which one. It's just clicking through until you find the right ones. Okay. But like with Substance, they do have quite a lot of materials that are already like damages and that sort of thing on there for other stuff, which is quite cool. Oh, I just removed that, that's annoying. Okay, let's find which one we did again. It does work very, very similar to Substance Painter. It's just not quite as refined. But actually, I do quite like. It's just wish it was a little bit easier to find your way around. Okay, I kind of want to make that like. Let's try something. Let's do that. Because you can still like layer up materials like you can with the others. Okay. No, I'm not a fan of that. Let's remove that. So what you do need to do a little bit. So this is kind of works like with Blender Lite. You need to know a little bit about nodes, and I've kind of roughly played around with nodes, but not a great deal, but just understanding like what plugs into what basically. So this is where OpenPaint actually is quite good because it kind of like is the in the middle sort of one. So Substance Painter you don't have to mess around with nodes at all, and then other ones that kind of you do, but something like that is okay. I think we just want like proper white, don't we? Okay. Right, what if I take the metallic, turn that up a little bit. Something. Yeah, something like that. I'm quite happy with that one. So let's do the same sort of thing. Which ones is that going to be? There we go. And again, I want that sort of like nodes. Let's get rid of that. Same thing. Okay, and then let's get some I think this is the one we used. Then let's do mess with that scale a bit. Can we do that? Well, I'm pretty sure we can do scale. Like that. Do the same on the bottom bit. I think it was that one. It was. Same sort of thing. Let's go to track play now. And then let's see that scale again a little bit. And last one. Okay, so in terms of adding materials, pretty much done. So I do quite like armour paint. So there's definitely more. You've got to do more with it than Substance Painter to sort of like get the hang of it. Um, there is a way of adding like edge wear and stuff like that. I can't remember where it is. Let's see if we can find it. Edgeware. Okay, let's give this a save first of all. Okay, let's see. Okay, so that's not bad actually. What other sorts? That's probably about it. There is no like specific. It renders real time as you're doing it, type of thing. So there's no actual like render engine, as it were, like with your IRA inside of Substance Painter. So we'll stop there for Armour Paint. Overall, quite a big fan of it. For what it is, incredibly cheap. Like I said, 13 quid. Bit more of a. Well, I've only played around with it. I've probably modelled like 6 or 7. I've textured rather 6 or 7 things in it, so I'm by no means an expert in it at all. It just requires you to sort of like play around a bit more with nodes, which some people kind of don't like. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of playing around with nodes, which is why I'm not a big fan of like Blender, which is why I like doing things in Maya and taking it to Substance Painter, and same with Fusion and that type of thing. But actually, not bad at all. There isn't a great deal of tutorials on Armour Paint on YouTube. There's a couple, and they do have their own YouTube channel. But again, like with anything like that, it's sort of trial and error. So we'll stop there for the Armour Paint one, and then we'll have the last one. We'll have a look at Marmoset Toolbag, which is brand new to me. Watched a few videos, like I say. Disclaimer, okay, as I said before, I am by no means an expert in texturing at all. It's very much just my view on trying to make my product design stuff look nice, look cool, that sort of thing. But hopefully you find this interesting as we're going through it. It's certainly, I quite like playing around with software. There's always stuff I like playing around with, whether it's modelling software or with texturing software. Whether I'm any good at them or not is a completely different thing. But playing around with it's a lot of fun. So yeah, let's start there with that one, and then we'll go on to the last little bit of the Armour Paint, and we'll sort of have an overall review of what we reckon. Okay, so the final part of this video, we're going to have a go at texturing the same headphones in Marmoset. So much like Substance Painter, there's a little bit more to it, so there's a little bit more complexity to it. So you do have to bake your maps manually. So the benefit of Fusion was that you didn't really have to do anything to do with UV maps and that sort of thing. And then once we got into Substance Painter, there was automatic baking, and then in this one you have to do it manually, which if you're going to do complex things is very, very good, but something like this, it's not too bad. I'm not going to go through how to do that in this video. All I'm trying to do here is just demonstrate different like benefits and drawbacks of just the texturing side of things, but I will do an introduction to how to set up everything in Marmoset. It's a little bit more expensive, so I think it was 90 quid for a educational license for the year. So of the 4 of them, it is the more expensive option. But what we'll do is we'll jump in and we'll start having a play around and see like a comparison at the end. So I'm just going to jump into texture, and much like the other ones, just sort of play around and start adding trial and error of materials. They do have quite a nice materials library, actually, so let's jump in. And much in the same way, once you've added it in, it's quite easy to play around with all the little details down here. So I can change the colour. I'm just going to try and make it similar sort of design and colours as the other one, so we've got like a fair comparison. And what I'll do is I'll add all the details, all the materials first, and we'll start adding in some details afterwards. Okay, so we've got the basics of the materials down. So it works very similar to all the other ones. It's like just dragging and dropping materials. It's nice and easy. But you do have loads of control in terms of like if you want to do triplanar or UV in terms of how you want it to wrap around. You've got all your roughness, metalness, bumps, and so on as you normally would. And then obviously because the leather when it first came in was black, so I can just change the albedo, which is the colour, and then give that like the actual white colour. So all we'll do now is just have a look at like trying to like scuff it up a little bit. And it works exactly the same sort of way. So if I take, let's go with like the back of the speakers first. So if we go back of speakers here, so if I do like a fill there and change the colour to like a grey like that, and then add a black mask, and then what we can do is much like before, so you can do things like scratches, and then you'll find that when you certain light shines on it, scratches will show up on it. And then we can also do the same thing. So what we might do, so let's undo that one, let's add a black mask again. If you go to here and I type in like fingerprints, and I'll take like this light one, drag it over for the mask instead. And there you can see it's kind of scuffed up a little bit, which is good. We got all sorts, so you got those, you got scratches. You got all sorts of scratches and dents that you can use as well. So you can always, so if I say if I don't have that many fingerprints, I want to bring that down a little bit. Fade it down a bit more at the edge. A little bit softer. And I'll mask here, I can turn it down so it's not quite as prominent, so that makes it really bad, and then I bring it down just so it's just quite, just slightly present, you don't want loads. And then same sort of thing. So it works, after this it works exactly like Substance Painter, and then you just add in masks, adding scratches, adding dents, adding all sorts of things. And I still like my old trick of getting some rust, adding this fine layer of rust, and then a black mask. We're going to do it quite so it's quite hard to see. But you can see actually like there's a bouquet there, and then again what we could do is we make those quite light, some contrast a bit. Like that, so it's very similar to how we would do Substance Painter, but I found that the rendering is much better in Marmoset from what I found personally. The only thing I haven't discovered yet is if they've got like generators, like Metal Edgeware, which you do have other ones which we'll go through in a second, which I've discovered, but that's the one thing on here I've missed having a little bit of. Okay, so let's do Rust again. Let's take that. Let's do that. The actual speakers themselves. And let's do black mask. Okay, and then we'll do a couple more up on the headband. There's some smudges on the hinges. Let's go to the hinges. Just breaks it up a little bit. Just trying to see if there's like water droplets or something. I'm not sure there is. No. Okay, so let's stop there in terms of the texture side of things. So if we just jump into render, and it is really easy to set rendering up with Marmoset. It's got a lot better rendering than Substance Painter I found. So we can go to skies and get something like 3-point lighting so you can see everything. And then over in render, put tracing on so you can see what it's actually going to look like. And then we can also play around a bit of contrast. Okay, so we'll leave that there, and then all we've got to do is then go to render, and go to image, and let's go to render image. Okay, so that's the end of like comparing between Fusion, Armor Paint, Substance Painter, and Marmoset. Last little bit, we'll just get the 4 images up and sort of like have a little look and comparison of them, sort of overall view of what we think. Okay, so looking back across all 4, so the first one, Fusion 360, just texturing and rendering in there. So this was our final render that we did. So it's not bad. If you've not got access to other rendering software, if you spend a bit of time, you certainly can get a decent looking render. What the drawback being, of course, you don't do UV unwrapping, you don't actually have complete control about how the material will be applied to the object, but you can do texture map control, gives you a little bit of control, but then adding things like imperfections and grunge and that sort of thing isn't really, well, the only way you can really do it is by adding a decal of scratches and things, and it doesn't quite look right. But as its own standalone thing, it probably has the best texturing and rendering out of all the like quote unquote like CAD things like SolidWorks and that sort of thing. So if you're not familiar or you're not confident in using other bits of software, you don't have access to it, it certainly does have decent texturing, but if you're wanting to push it for your presentation a bit more, I certainly would start having a look at other bits of software as well. So the next one is Armor Paint. Now this was the one that it was 13 quid I think I spent. In terms of texturing, it was quite good, quite easy to do. It's a lot of drag and dropping, and it's kind of good intermediate if you don't know about like nodes and that sort of thing. Problem is that it doesn't actually have a render engine, so what you need to do is texture and then take it and render it in another piece of software. So that is the only little drawback that you do have, but it had some good materials, had some good generators and things like that. I've zoomed in a bit here, so it does actually look a bit pixelated there, which is a bit annoying, but okay, a solid like thing for just texturing, but no real option to render. Next one was Substance Painter, which for the past year or so has certainly been my favourite texturing software. Once you know the basics of like layers like you do in Photoshop and building things up, really easy to use. You can get things like generators to do like edge wear, which is super easy to do. It was Marmoset, which before Substance Painter, or after, sorry, I started with Substance Painter first, I've gone to Marmoset, and I actually starting to think I prefer Marmoset a little bit. The only thing you don't have is those generators of things like edge wear, which I found really nice and easy to use, but you do have ways of adding masks and that sort of thing. And I found the actual way to render in Marmoset to be much better. You've got more options in that than you do Substance Painter. However, the benefit of Substance Painter is that they do offer the free educational license. So if you're going like for financial reasons, because they offer free educational licenses, Fusion, obviously, because Autodesk offers an educational license anyway, is quite good. And then being able to take it and put it into Substance Painter, which again, free education license with Adobe. But if you've got the money to buy a license, I certainly would play around with Marmoset, because like I say, I'm quite a big fan of it, and it's something I'm planning on using quite a bit more. Hopefully you found that useful and interesting. Bear in mind, these are all my own opinions of me playing around with it. There are people that are infinitely better at me at texturing and rendering. This is just sort of my view coming from teaching design at a college, particularly production and architecture style rendering. So by all means, not a professional at it. This is just how I've found the best ways of doing it for the price and that sort of thing. So hopefully that's been highlighted a bit of insight. Got any questions, please leave a comment down below or email me at designwithsimon@outlook.com.